Hello and welcome to A Young Man's Guide to Life, episode 13. Today I'm joined with a very good friend, Max Coutts, we decided, I thought it'd be a really good idea to talk in and around the topic of losing hair, balding, how you deal with it, all of that. So, hi, Max.
How's it going?
Yes, very good. I like your garden setting. It looks really sunny today.
Well, it's a nice day. I work just inside the door, which you can't see, obviously 6 feet away, and I often come out and do my work here. And it's a lovely day, so here I am.
It's a good way of doing it, definitely. When you're working from home, trying to get some sun. I need to do the same. I've got a garden. I need to be using it. Laptops can be moved, but not here to talk about that today. Talking about something that about kind of male pattern baldness, balding, losing hair, and what I like to do on this podcast is go around all different friends and people that I know to talk about the things that they know about, the things they've experienced. I think I've heard you talk on this subject, and I thought you talked really eloquently on this subject as to what's the experience of when these things happen and what to avoid. Because I could imagine there's a lot of snake oil salesmen out there and a lot of bad things you could do. And when things happen to you, you want to latch on and go and fix it, and there's probably a lot of waste of money items out there. I wanted to keep it away from that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are lots of different routes you can take, and I don't think any of them are right or wrong. For me personally, I didn't want to go down the route of treatment or any of that. I'd always thought ahead of this that I'd like to sort of grow old gracefully-ish, or disgracefully, but that was never my sort of path. Of course, going through it was slightly different, and we can talk about that. But it was just never something I'd considered doing. And so I'm only 38, so I'm probably somewhere in the middle of where people start to lose their hair or so on. And I've actually, and quite a lot of my friends are like, "You've still got so much hair," which you obviously probably can't tell today, 'cause it's a fresh shave. But and I do, and I have plenty of hair. It's just I was going thin, and I didn't like that look, and I didn't want to be one of those guys who, really hang on to their hair. And if that's your thing, that's okay. But I didn't want to hang on to my hair beyond its sort of natural life cycle. So I wanted to really get ahead of this and stop worrying about it. And this was my option. I came across this guy, Harry James, on YouTube. He has a Bald Cafe.
Okay.
And I watched a bunch of his videos, and quite a lot of guys shave their head on like live on there.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Or do it and send a video and then talk about it with him afterwards. And all of them, absolutely every single one of them without fail was, well, they maybe check the mirror a lot, or they're worried about the weather, or they're putting hats on, or they're worried about the rain, they won't get in a swimming pool. And it starts, small, like with, let's just brush the hair like that, and then let's do a bit more and a bit more. And I saw this video, and I don't really know how I saw this video, because I wasn't looking for them, and I wasn't really worried about hair loss at the time. I mean, I was aware that I was sort of starting to go thin, but it wasn't sort of troubling me, or I thought it wasn't troubling me. And then I saw it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm doing all of these things.
Right.
And it sort of flipped a bit of a switch for me, because I'm like, I must be wasting so much emotional energy on this. Because it had started really small. Actually, the first time I shaved my head, I was working in the Middle East. It's like, this hot, so I'll get rid of it. And that's when I realized, oh, shit, I'm sorry. I'm going,
you can say shit,
see that I'm going bald here. I'm losing my hair.
Right.
And so I grew it back immediately.
Yeah.
And then I sort of forgot about it. I put it to bed because, like I said, it wasn't that bad. For want of a better phrase, it wasn't that bad, or it wasn't that progressed. And I sort of put it to bed, and then I was like, okay, well, if I just sort of brush my hair over that way, fine, you can't see anything.
Yeah.
Then it's like, well, when that gets a bit, you get a bit bit more progressive. So, well, it was a case of, well, I have to grow slightly longer hair. Not like a comb over. It's just it was slightly longer on the sides, slightly longer on the top, and shorter on the sides. And then it was, well, I best get some more hold on this. So let's look at a stronger wax or something. And then I was worried about what the rain would do to that. And then I found myself one day when we had some people. We met some people at a swimming pool, and it's like, I don't want to put my head under the water here because I've got this right, and nobody can tell when I was like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, when I saw that video, I was like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I can't be doing this. So I thought about it for a while. I actually emailed Harry a couple of times, and he was good enough to respond to me and talk me through it and stuff. And it got to a stage where I was like, right, well, I'm going to set a time, and I'm just going to go for it, because I know that if I just look at it on the day and I'm like, oh no, I won't be today, then I wouldn't do it. So I sort of set a decision, right? I'm going to do it on this day, and I just sort of got on with it. And so many of his videos, the dudes had said, like, it was such a weight off my shoulders, and I could forget about it. Yeah. And I was fully expecting that, and it didn't happen. Again, I hated it. Yeah. What I've since learned, on that point, is that it was nothing to do with having a shaved head. It was the change. If you suddenly had zero hair, it would be a massive change, and you wouldn't be used to it. If you suddenly had a big beard, or you had a big beard and shaved it off, it's, oh my God, my chin. It's just the change, actually. Of course. Okay. But nonetheless, I did that, and I didn't like it. But I'd done it once, and I was sort of determined that I wasn't going to go back to hiding it away and spending all that time and energy on covering it up. So I just sort of carried on with it, really. And here we are a few years later, and if I'm totally honest, I've forgotten what I looked like with hair. Yeah. So I'm sort of out the other side of that, and there's a sort of journey, and we can talk about that if you want, but that's sort of how I got here.
That makes sense. I'm really intrigued to hear that, because I know there's people who are worrying about it every day. I know there's people who are trying to hide it, and you're right, the emotional energy that's spent on, I hope no one sees that, maybe it's a date, maybe it's a swimming thing, maybe it's the wind, maybe it's, losing the product in your hair so it shows.
And they shouldn't be, Yeah. Because everybody's got their own thing, right? And you sure as shit, nobody's worried about what you look like, unless you look really ridiculous with maybe like a really bad comb over or something like that. It's time to give this up now, dude. Yeah. We can all tell. Yes. Or if you went down the fibers route or something, which again is totally fine if you want to do that. But if it rained, then it would, that sort of thing. To me, in my mind, that was taking it too far, right? Styling your hair one way is one thing, but fibers and all that sort of stuff was for me that was too much. Yeah. And in it, even me, I realized that I was spending all this time and energy on it, and then I knew sort of logically, rationally, that nobody cares except me. Yeah. Emotionally, that journey was somewhat different, but because I think to an extent we're probably all concerned with what people think of us, but nobody cares. Like, not once have I seen like a guy on the train or walking down the road on my way to work, anywhere it might be, thinking, you've got no hair, you are a fucking idiot, like, what a loser, that's not a thing. I can't help it any more than anybody can help the sexual persuasion or whatever.
Height or anything. It's arbitrary,
I mean, what sort of person judges somebody for something they can't help? Exactly. So logically, I knew that. Emotionally, that journey was somewhat different. Yeah. So.
Well, I'm glad you acknowledged that. And what I find really refreshing is when I knew you had a knowledge on the subject and you've been through it, I expected our talk to be like, when it first started happening, I was this age, these were the options, here's the pros and cons of each option. But what's really refreshing is you just went through the kind of the emotion of what does this really mean? And what I find refreshing is you're basically saying you've got to acknowledge it and do something. And what I've found is you've grown into not only the look of it, but the kind of acceptance of what's happened and how you've dealt with it. And I find you own it now really, really well. Probably better than if you'd have said to me, I went to Turkey or I did fibres or I did shampoo or whatever.
I mean, like I say, if you want to do that, that's okay. You know, it's far be it for me to tell you what the right thing for you is.
Yeah, of course.
Or any other than someone should tell me how I should deal with it, because I don't know what it's like to be someone else and what they're going through. Yeah. So that's that's okay. Yeah. For me, I wasn't delighted, obviously, about going bald, and obviously I was spending quite a lot of more time than I'd realised, like worrying and covering it up, and that was the problem I really wanted to deal with. In the back of my mind, I was like, I don't think people who've shaved their head look stupid. No. I don't think that's a bad look.
Cool.
So I'm going to go for that, and I'm going to get ahead of this problem, because I could have had, I could still be holding on to my hair, now.
Yeah.
It probably, I don't know how far it would have progressed, but I know there's, I can feel, there's quite a lot of hair left. So, but, at the time, I had one baby son. I was days away from having my second.
Yeah.
And I've got two sons now. And one of the big things for me was, I'm really glad that I went through it like now.
Yes.
And I'm really glad that I dealt with it now, because I'm going to teach them, or I teach them, that it doesn't matter what you look like, and it's how kind you are and what you're like inside. And I truly believe that. Do I always practice it on myself? No, I don't, because there are days when, of course, I care what I look like, and I see myself and I'm like, would I prefer to have a full head of hair? Yeah, I would. Now, I don't care now, but there are days like that. And what I wouldn't want to do is have them older and have me tell them, guys, it doesn't matter what you look like.
Yes.
But also them, with the other hand, see me worrying about what my hair looks like and trying to cover it up, because that would be no lesson at all.
Correct.
Because kids are smart, and they'd know that was nonsense.
Yes.
So that would be no lesson for them, and we are nothing if not our children's teachers, and that would be a terrible lesson for them. And I believe it. I do believe it. So I'm very glad that I got to sort of do it now and get ahead of the curve, whether it was, my time, or I could have hung on longer or whatever. I'm glad to have done it earlier so that I can move on and put it behind me. The whole, like I say, would I choose to be bald? No, I wouldn't choose to be bald, but I don't care anymore. And I've moved past the whole worrying about going bald thing now. This is it. And every now and again, I still see people that I haven't seen since beforehand, and most people either pretend nothing's changed, which in some ways is a little odd, and then some people are like, oh right, it suits you, or something like that. And then way down the other end of the spectrum, you got people who are like, oh my god, you're bald. I'm like, so I'm 38 years old. I'm a father of two. I'm tired all the time, and I'm stressed at work. This is not unusual. So
it's not.
So it's not anything to be worried about. And I think it says almost more about it certainly says more about the person reacting to it than myself, I believe. So
yeah, I agree with that. I think your attitude's commendable. I love your attitude on the whole thing, and I think you only could have given that conclusion and taught us that by going through it from start to finish. I just think it's a really stoic and really commendable kind of attitude. What I was going to, and it does suit you, by the way, and also because I know your lifestyle, and I know you like to work out and stuff like that, and get outside and run and things like that. That it kind of fits in with your lifestyle and what you like to do. So some people. It is, I'm sure it's easier. And some people may even think you've done it for a reason other than because you know there's no point in trying to hide any thinning or anything like that. So some people could conclude that, you know, easily.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, different paths for different people.
Yeah,
that's, you know, it's not for me to tell people what works for some and what works for others. I can only speak to, you know, what I did and what worked for me. And did I, you know, shave it off and love it and feel this weight lifted off my shoulders? No, of course I didn't. Well, no, I didn't. Lots of people do. But what I know, having been through that and taken that slightly longer to arrive at where I am now, I can tell you, like, if you're going thin or, you know, your hair's receding and you're worried about going bald one day, or you're in the middle of that process, or you wear hats everywhere, or you're worried about the rain, or whatever it might be, if you're there, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's not bad. Like, you'll come out the other side of it and you'll have moved on. I mean, all it took for me is everybody I know to see me like one time, and then we've moved on, right?
Yes. Yeah,
so you know, it took me a while to get used to looking at myself with no hair, but
it's just a change, like you said.
What I can definitely tell you is that you're not going to worry about it forever, and you will move on.
Yes.
And I think for me, certainly, that it's much better to not be spending all that time worrying about something that you can't control and trying to control it, and than it is to do it this way and then move on and put that all behind you.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be plenty of things to worry about. And, you know, this is just actually, in the grand scheme of things, this is so vastly unimportant. You know, there are people around the world really suffering. Yes. And to you know, I sort of felt like to really indulge in my own self-pity over something like this would have been really, I don't know, unimpressive or something.
Yeah, it's the balance, isn't it? I think you now being a bit kind of wise on the subject, I want to kind of go, and I think your advice is really good. So for younger guys or guys who are going through it or about to go through it and listening, I think they can really pay heed to what you experienced. I want to go back a little bit to when things first started, because in my head, I do believe that when it first starts happening to guys, they're probably they clutch a little bit at various things, and I wanted to talk about what they might clutch at, whether it's buying products or doing activities like hiding it or hats, whatever, that are kind of desperately trying to reverse something that's already happening. I want to get them out. I want to get them advised, really, and get them out of that desperation move.
I mean, I did it. Yeah. I just didn't really realise, or
right.
Not that I didn't realise. It was more like I didn't consciously do it because I was like, oh my, I've got to hide the fact that I'm, you know, going bald. It wasn't about that.
Yes.
I just didn't really realise that I was doing this, because it started so small. Like I said, it started from, well, just get your hair cut this way.
Yeah.
And then it was, okay, well, I get bed hair, or I used to get bed hair really badly. So it's like, well, I'll have my shower in the morning before I go to work, rather than in the evening after, you know, so that I can set that. And then, okay, well, let's get some stronger wax on there, and then let's get a bit of hairspray on there, and then you're worrying about the weather and getting an umbrella, and so I was doing it.
Yeah.
It just wasn't. It sort of crept up on me. So, but my morning routine went from like 2 minutes to 5 to 10 to 20, and I hadn't realised, because it was like, you know, like scope creep or something, and so I was spending that energy, and it took me seeing these videos on Bald Cafe to think about it. And there was this one particular one done by a guy called Justin Pope, I think his name was. Anyway, lovely guy. And it was just like, these are all the things that I'm thinking and have no way of articulating, or had never tried to articulate. Yeah. And actually, I said to my wife, I mean, she wouldn't have cared anyway.
Yeah,
she's wonderful like that. But I said, look, will you watch this video with me? I didn't tell her why or anything. And then at the end of it, I was like, well, look, this is exactly what I'm going through. And she was like, I never realised. Just if it's bothering you, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And she was right, of course.
Yeah.
So I was doing these things, but through the course of going through that, watching like all of the Bald Cafe videos and give or take, what I can see, and now I know people who've like tried to hide it. I know people who've gone to Turkey. I know people putting like minoxidil on their hair every day.
Yeah.
It's not like taking a magic pill and then you can forget about it and your hair never goes away. It's not like that. You're doing stuff every day. You're putting minoxidil, or other products are available, but you're doing that every day.
Yeah.
And it's not a case of, oh, you put this thing on your head once a day and you forget about it. It's not that simple.
No.
So, all I would say is if you're thinking about going down the route of treatment, if that's your thing, and you're committed to that, cool, that's fine. But don't be going into it thinking, well, I'll do this one thing, or I'll take this one trip and spend a few grand, and then it'll be okay, and I can forget about it, because it's not like that.
No, it's not a magic bullet.
And you can tell that it's not like that because you see people all over the place who've evidently gone and done that, but it doesn't go away. You still shave your head, and when they do shave their head, all the bits that were going bald are still much thinner anyway than the rest of it. So I don't think, to my mind personally, you can never really cover it up. And I guess some people, look a lot better with it, and they get treatment for it, and that's okay. But it's not as simple as do it once and this is your problem solved. So don't go into it thinking that is, I would say, it's not rosy like that. This is. And to me, when I sort of learned that and spoken to people and watched all these videos, I'm like, well, I want to do this because I want to move on from this problem, from this worry. I don't want to be spending my time worrying about this. I don't want to be putting stuff in my hair every day because it doesn't matter. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's get it out in the open, and we'll move on.
That's brilliant.
And that was, for me, that worked for me.
That's really refreshing to hear, because I swear a lot of the guys that may be listening to this will be thinking, okay, teach me about it then. It's starting to happen to me. I'm whatever age. Compare the shampoo to the fibres, to the turkey, to the clothes. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's probably because marketing is geared towards, like, you think about, I don't know, I've never met your parents, but mine, my parents, think about, like, your grandparents' generation. Nobody cared. No, like being you go around sporting like a sort of Albert Einstein horseshoe, and nobody cared. That wasn't. So I think marketing has got involved and thought, we've got this, this population here that we can target for this.
Yes,
so we have this, growing problem with body dysmorphia and stuff, and I'm sure you'll talk about that, or have done some other time, but I think it's a little bit like that. It's like there's this problem that has been created, and everything you see is treatment. And look at it, it's like, I've even said it, it's like treatment. Treatment implies there's a problem, and actually this affects like so many people, like I don't know what the percentages are, but I would bet it's pretty high. I would bet it's a very sizable minority. Even if, and I think it's an absolute majority when people get into their like 60s and 70s. And I think it's because all the literature and all the marketing we hear is all targeted towards take this pill or take this treatment, and even the language is geared towards making you think that this is a negative thing. A bit like, I don't know if it's an interesting story. I read this little article about Gillette and other razor product companies during World War II. All the men were off fighting, so there was no one to sell the razor blades to. So they marketed at women, wouldn't it be nice to shave your legs for your men when they come home? Right. Now most people like to see their women with shaved legs, or most women just do. That's like the accepted norm, but it wasn't. Right. It wasn't like this. The marketing departments across the razor blade industry took this as an opportunity and created a problem where none existed. And I can't help but feel like there's probably a bit of that. And obviously I don't know what it was like to be bald in the 50s, so I don't know that for certain. But, if you see the same thing with like, underwear adverts and shit like that, like all men are hench now, and whereas even 20 years ago that wasn't really a thing.
That's true.
So we're selling this ideal image of what people should look like, and not very many of those have no hair. So I think this is sort of, if you can realize that that's going on,
definitely,
then I think it helps. Like the whole, you grow up and you get married and you have 2 kids and you buy a house, I think a lot of that is conditioned into us because just what everybody, give or take, that's just what everybody does. So, I think there's quite an element of stuff we don't realize happening to us from these sorts of outside sources and society at large.
I totally agree. I think we're giving the guys that listen to this a sensible viewpoint of, something that can happen to you. And if it does happen to you, it's as arbitrary as, like you said, growing older, getting a beard when you get a little bit older, or not being able to grow a beard. It's all just arbitrary stuff that may or may not happen to you. It's one of the seasons of life you've got to deal with. I think that's really good.
And I think the other thing is just to keep in some perspective, and it doesn't, and I don't think it'll make it easier, because obviously, well, not obviously, but I think we all have a tendency to worry about our own stuff. We can't all worry about every problem in the world because there's too much.
Yeah.
Which is why people champion their own causes. But where I'm going with this, I think, is, you've got. Actually, I don't know where I was going with that. If I'm honest, I forgot.
It's all right. So what do you think? Let me ask you, where could guys look if they want to find a good resource on everything we've talked about today? And I don't mean researching any snake oil kind of quick fix treatments, but
get on YouTube and watch Harry James's channel. Bald Cafe. It's excellent, and he was so nice. And I think he's got way too many subscribers now to be replying to people individually. Right. But I caught him just below 100,000 subscribers, and I did a podcast with him, which obviously but other people might not. And it was great, and that conversation was cathartic, and this is great and stuff. But I found a lot of use on there, because not that I'd given it much thought prior, but I hadn't talked to anyone about it, and I wasn't so I guess I was isolated in that respect. And seeing that all of them, whereas the approach afterwards might differ slightly, all of the videos, they were going through the same worries. It's like exactly the same. Like I was doing this, I was doing that, I was worried about this, I was worried about that. Like all of it, which is why it connected with me so much. Is every single one of these is saying exactly the same thing, and they're exactly the same things that I'm going through. Like it was uncanny, and I just started watching them, and it sort of went from there, really.
I'm sure the emotional capital, the time spent and the money spent by some of these guys can go from as short as because I know it was a couple of months or 9 months or so that you were kind of ruminating on all these problems, how you approached it. But some of these guys may have spent years, a lot of time and effort and a lot of money to try and do something against what is, like we've just talked about before, is arbitrary, and like you said, people don't care about it eventually.
And I mean, the train of thought I was going down before.
Good, you remembered it. Good.
You got to try and understand and get some perspective about how little it matters.
Yes.
Like people are not thinking about you and how you look, and then you've got what have you got? You've got people in Ukraine fighting for their homelands. You've got people trying to cross the Mediterranean and watching their children drown in front of them. And we don't need to go nearly that far, but people's lives are shitty.
Yeah.
Some people struggle, for work, come out of university, on the other end, you come out of university these days with 50, 60, 70,000 pounds of debt, and you can't find a job even with that.
Yeah.
There are so many bigger problems to deal with that are going to affect your life in so many more ways. And my feeling is, for me, and I'm not unique. Of course, I'm not unique. So it must therefore apply to at least some other people. Is that it would have been overly self-indulgent given how fortunate I am. I've got 2 happy, healthy children. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got a roof over my head, and I don't have breakfast in my stomach because you interrupted that process with this podcast. But I'm very fortunate in so many ways, and I know we have this sort of negative bias as a sort of species, but to really, really allow myself to go down that rabbit hole, I felt was emotionally the wrong thing, and I felt it was just, not that I think of it in these terms, but I guess selfish to wider humanity or something. When there are all these people are really suffering, and I'm fortunate in so many ways, to get too wrapped up in this, that, like I say, it just doesn't matter. And I've learned that, like, emotionally as well as logically now. Like, I don't, like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I think I can count the amount of people who've said, oh, you should grow it back. And then I said, well, actually, the reason I shaved my head was because of this.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, that totally makes sense. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, you don't need to apologize. Just they didn't know, and but nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like, nobody cares. And it's really important to realize that I think if you're struggling with this at any point, nobody else cares. So if you can get yourself to the point where you don't care, then there is no problem.
Yes.
See what I did? Problem. There is no problem.
No.
It's not unusual. It happens to so many people, and it happens to some people young. Like,
yes.
Some of these people, like 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know. Remember, people we both worked with in the past. It happened to them at like 16.
Oh, right. Okay.
And they imagine dealing with that as like a child at school. That would be tough, right?
That would be really tough.
So mid-30s, I shaved mine off on my 35th birthday, and I'm now 38.
Yeah.
That is not that bad.
Yes.
So I'm in my late 30s, and I have no hair. I choose to shave my hair. So what? This is not unusual, and it's not that bad.
That's it. I think that's a good conclusion. I think it's really refreshing the way you've come through this and learned your experience and shared it today. I think younger guys now know what it's like to come in and out of the situation. There's good and bad times to go through it. We've said that, but at least they know where to look. Yeah. But
I would say the key points, certainly for me, and I think if it applies to me, I'm not saying it will work for everybody, because this is just my personal experience, but I can't help but feel like it must apply to some other people, given how I said, I'm not unique, is it's not that bad. I can tell you, having gone through it and come out the other side, it's not that bad. And by that, I mean the process. Being here now, it's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. Like I say, would I choose to have a full head of hair? Yeah, probably. But that's okay. I don't care. I don't care. And there was a little journey, but I don't care. This is not that bad. So try not to worry too much. The other thing I would say is talk to people, because nobody will be realizing what you're going through, if you're particularly if you're hiding it well. Just
you have a supportive wife and everything, and
pick a couple of people and just say, look, this is what's going through, and this is my thought process, because it's going to soften that when you if you do choose to go down this route and shave. And the other thing I'd say is, watch things like this, do your research, watch Bull Cafe, because that was being able to see. I mean, this is just one of your podcasts, right?
Yes,
this is like loads and loads of them. So you get this sort of sense of, I'm not alone doing this. This is there are so many people doing the same thing, which you wouldn't know just to walk around like every day in the streets. So it's not that bad. Yeah. Talk to people, do some research, and watch Bald Cafe. I'd say, like, if this is your route, and logically you know that this is where you want to end up, it's fine. Like, this is fine, and you're going to be fine. I like that. That's a good place to end it. I'm definitely going to put the link at the bottom of the podcast and on everywhere I post. Do. Yeah. He's a gentleman. He's a really nice chap. So And the video's super helpful.
And one thing I've learned as well in all
Like
the
yours.
personal resilience stuff that I'm doing at the moment is things always seem worse in your head. When you talk about them, when you actually get them out of your head, talk to other people, they're not as bad as you're making them out in your own head. It's so easy to isolate yourself and go into a downward spiral of worrying about something until you talk to someone else.
I think there is this assumption that other people will think these problems are really bad as well, maybe. And when then people turn around and say, nobody cares. Oh my God, this is fine. Then it softens it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I found.
I like it. Well, Max, thank you very much for today.
No,
We're almost out of time. That was really insightful. And like I said to you, really refreshing, because I honestly thought we were going to be talking about option 1, option 2, and your paradigm, your mindset on it is really refreshing to me, to what I perceived everyone to be thinking about, because, the media and all these different adverts on the tube and all this kind of thing, you're expecting that everybody's grabbing all these different ways of, like you said, solving the problem, but there is no problem, and it's how you look at it.
I don't think so.
That's brilliant.
Well, thanks, dude.
Thanks
nice
so
chat.
much. Very good chat. It's always quite cathartic to do these talks and chats, but hopefully another kind of thing that guys talk about, guys that worry about, guys that think about, hopefully will help some of the guys on this podcast that listen to this podcast on that subject.
I hope
Thank
so.
you. Appreciate your help, Max. See you soon. Have a great afternoon.
Take
and
care.
hope you get some lunch.
Thanks.
Cheers. See you later.
Bye.